We're going to call the Tuesday, November 19th, Manistee City Council meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michelle, can you please take the roll?
Mayor Kenny.
Here.
Councilmember Cody.
Here.
Councilmember Harpo.
Here.
Councilmember Bixby.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Zeri.
Here.
Councilmember Whitler.
Here.
Councilmember Gustin.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Public Safety Director. And City Engineer.
Here.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Citizen comments and agenda-related items. This is a portion of the meeting where any citizens in attendance would like to comment on tonight's agenda. They can come forward. Is there anyone who would like to comment on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All agenda items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval of the consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, approval of payroll, cash balances report, monthly bills, notification regarding next work session, and consideration of sleigh bell parade and Old Christmas weekend. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion the council take action to approve the consent agenda as presented. I'll support.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hornfeld, support by Councilmember Goodspeed, to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Matt, can you please take the roll?
Councilmember Cody.
Yes.
Councilmember Bixby.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitler.
Yes.
Councilmember Harpo.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Zeri.
Yes.
Councilmember Gustin.
Yes.
And Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Move on to unfinished business. We have none. New business. Consideration of appointing street administrator. Whereas Section 13.9 of Act 51, Public Acts of 1951, provided that each incorporated city and village to which funds are returned under the provisions of this section, that the responsibility for street improvements, maintenance, and traffic operations work, and the development, construction, or repair of off-street parking facilities, and construction or repair of street lighting shall be coordinated by a single administrator to be designated by the governing body, who shall be responsible for and shall represent the municipality in transactions with the State Transportation Department pursuant to this act. Is there a motion to designate Jeffrey McCullough as a single street administrator?
I'll make the motion.
Support.
I have a motion by Councilmember Goodspeed, support by Councilmember Hornfeld, to designate Jeff McCullough as the single street administrator for the city of Manistee. Is there any discussion?
Is this a new position? We're required to do this on an annual basis where we appoint traditionally the Department of Public Works Director as that single point of contact with MDOT.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? So Matthew, please take the roll.
Councilmember Harpo.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Councilmember Gustin.
Yes.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitler.
Yes.
Councilmember Cody.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Zeri.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of purchasing water department service truck. The City of Manistee Department of Public Works has solicited bids to replace the existing 2004 Ecoline van, which is currently used daily by the service person in the water department. The existing van is not rated for the heavy loads that we have subjected it to over the last 10 years. As such, the van requires frequent maintenance and has reached its useful service life. Proposed replacement is a 2014 one-ton truck with a full service body. This new water service truck was included in the revised motor pool plan, which was presented to council at the 10/8/13 work session. Bids were solicited from 3 local vendors. 2 bids were received with a low bid of $33,613 submitted by Manistee Ford. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion the council take action to approve the purchase of a F-350 truck with reading and service body for Manistee Ford. The bid amount is $33,613. plus trade allowance of $1,600 for the existing van, for a total purchase price of $32,013.
I'll support that.
Have a motion by Councilmember Hornville, support by Councilmember Cody to purchase the one F-350 truck. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Bixby?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Zeri?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitliff?
Yes.
Councilmember Gustet?
Yes.
Councilmember Cody?
Yes.
Councilmember Harmful?
Yes.
And Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of a resolution recognizing the United Way as a nonprofit organization. As part of their annual fundraising campaign, the United Way would like to conduct a raffle. Prior to the state of Michigan issuing a license for this raffle, the city of Manistee would need to recognize the United Way as a nonprofit organization. Do you have a motion to recognize the Manistee United Way?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
A motion by Councilmember Cody, support by Councilmember Goodspeed to recognize the Manistee United Way as a nonprofit. Is there any discussion? I'm just surprised it's not been done before.
First time the request has come forward.
Michelle, can you please take the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Zeri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gustet?
Yes.
Councilmember Cody?
Yes.
Mayor Kenny?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitliff?
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed?
Yes.
And Councilmember Harmful.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of a professional service agreement with the Spicer Group, the SAW grant resolution. The City of Manistee has been working with the Spicer Group to prepare a scope of work to apply for and complete design work, studies, and asset management plans for the wastewater and stormwater systems. The scope of the work totals $1,905,000, the maximum local match being $326,250. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality has determined on a preliminary basis that Manistee qualifies as a disadvantaged business based on the debt load of the utility systems. If confirmed, the local match would be zero. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve the contract by Councilmember Hornville, support by Councilmember Goodspeed. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I got one question. For the $1,905,000, is that not to exceed?
We'll answer that question in a second, but if we could we just go over a couple of quick additional points to council? Some things have changed since that work session discussion that we had with City Council, and we want to quickly go over that with council to ensure you have all the information. And then we'll circle back to your question, Councilmember Cody.
As you are aware from the presentation we did at the last work session, this is a very complex and large grant application, and the city and Spicer Group have been working on it ever since the application has come out. This is actually the application that would be submitted, so there's a lot of information there. A lot of it was included in the council packets. Also, the draft sanitary sewer evaluation study is included in this. On the screen, I wanted to just make a few points based on questions that I've heard to date. And Spicer's here if we need to answer any further questions regarding the scope of work. And then also we have the PowerPoint that was given at the work session loaded also in case we need to go back to any particular slides to look at. The summary of this for the City of Manistee is that the three components that we are looking at is an asset management plan for our sanitary sewer system. This is not required currently, but the state of Michigan has told us that when our next NPDES permit is renewed, which the current one expires October of 2015, having an asset management plan will be a component of that permit. Any communities that have flows or a plant that is rated over 1 million gallons a day will be required to have an asset management plan. In this grant budget, that total scope of work is just a little over $1 million. There is, if we did not receive this grant and were required to complete the asset management on our own dime, we would be able to scale that down somewhat but this gives us the best opportunity to fund that future mandate with grant dollars. The other string that's attached, and Sean went through this, is that we need to show progress towards any of the funding gaps. So if the asset management plan says that we need to be replacing equipment on a certain schedule, and we do not have revenues currently budgeted to do that, and we need to accelerate it, we need to start budgeting, and what are the exact figures that they require?
Going to close the gap by 10% within the first 3 years.
So if we had a $100,000 gap, we would need to close that by $10,000 over a 3-year period. If it was $1 million gap, we'd have to close that by $100,000 within the 3-year period. So that's the only string that's attached to that particular item. The asset management portion of this grant application that pertains to the storm sewer has a budget of $590,000, and that includes videotaping and complete condition analysis of the whole system. If this is not anticipated to be required as part of our NPDES permit, if we did not receive this grant, this is something that we wouldn't necessarily do on our own, something we probably should as a best practice, but it wouldn't be something that we'd be mandated to do. The third component of this is the wastewater planning and design. And if you go back to all the sewer separation that we've done in the past 18 years, it all started with a sewer master plan. And within that sewer master plan, the city of Manistee committed to a 20-year fixed date schedule from which to remove all of the combined sewers and all of the overflows. The end of that 20-year period is 2016, okay? When we committed to that 20-year program, we did so because there were 30 million plus worth of construction that had to be done, and we negotiated with the state that it would take time for us to complete all that work. Once we agreed to that fixed date schedule, it also made us eligible for the state revolving fund money that currently is at 2.25%. So all the sewer separation projects we've done in the past 18 years, including the last wastewater treatment plant extension, have benefited from us being on that schedule. So the state actually created a low interest loan program that helped us separate those sewers. But that requirement to separate the final sewers and remove our final, we have one CSO that's remaining. We have to remove that per our current permit and that fixed date schedule by 2016. When we applied for the S2 grant 2 years ago, one of the requirements of the S2 grant was that whatever comes out of that grant or whatever comes out of that study, we have to implement, okay? We knew that the obvious implementation of that study and the purpose of that study was to help us get rid of that last combined sewer overflow. So we got committed to removing the overflow with our fixed day schedule, with our NPDES permit, and also with the S2 grant. What is included in the SAW grant application is the design of that removal. And what the sanitary sewer evaluation study is recommending is that even though we have removed hundreds of thousands of gallons of inflow and infiltration from our system, we still have very high peak flows during wet weather events and during snow melts. And so we will likely have to build some what's called an equalization basin. It's basically a tank that excessive flows go into, they get stored. When the storm subsides, we're able to treat those and run those through the plant. So that is so far what has been studied and what is being required of us in order to comply with removing that last CSO. So the SAW grant allows us to pay for the design of those components, but it doesn't further obligate us towards any more construction than we're already obligated to. So I think that this whole program, from the city's perspective, is very beneficial. It takes money that we already are committed to, funds them. It also takes the asset management portion that we know we're going to have to fund in the future. It would cover that. And the storm sewer is really a bonus and helps us in the best practice to manage another one of our utility systems.
On the last sentence does not include additional commitments for construction. What are the additional commitments?
It does not include any additional.
Oh, it doesn't include.
Right. One of the questions was, if we accept this grant, does that bind us to additional capital outlays?
Okay.
And my point is, this pays for the design of capital outlays that we've already committed to
Okay.
through past practices.
But that really didn't answer the question for me. If we say that we go ahead with this grant, I understand that you say it's going to pay for some designs that we're going to have to do down the road, separate from this grant. But then is this going to require us to spend other capital money to meet some obligations?
We will have to spend capital money to, number one, study and determine how big the equalization basin has to be. We will have to then design that equalization basin and pay for the construction of it. And we will also have to design for the removal of the combined sewer 18, which is at 5th and Ramsdale Street. Those are commitments that the city has and will need to fund in the future. So what this grant does is pay for the rest of the study and design of those components. And when we get the project to a point where we know what it's going to cost, then we're going to have to seek other sources of funding. The SSES study that was done through the S2 loan or grant also has a SRF application as part of that. So we already know it's very complex, but we already know that we already have an application ready to be submitted to the DEQ for those low interest loans for whatever those future projects.
And these are the ones which need to make that 2016 deadline, correct?
Correct. Now, in a separate topic, and we just met with Avamarsh this afternoon, who is completing the SSES study, but based on their findings, and they'll be scheduling a public hearing within the next month or so, we will likely need to ask for an extension of that 2016 deadline. And we've already had, Mitch and I have already started some conversations with the DEQ, and they didn't say yes, but they didn't seem absolutely opposed because the city has been making very strong progress towards eliminating that last combined sewer overflow.
Jeff, is it fair to state that everything that we're doing has been driven by the 1996 agreement between the city of Manistee and the state of Michigan, which required us to remove, and there are certain things we have to do in order to comply with that, including removal of the stormwater so we don't damage our plant.
Yes. Everything that's included on the wastewater planning and design portion of this grant application, you're exactly right.
So the question really is there anything that this particular grant is requiring us to commit to that has not been already previously committed by the 1996 agreement? I think the answer is no, but that's what I want you to say.
Yeah, the answer is no, there's no additional interest. This is a fantastic opportunity for us to fund additional things. It's not for certain that we will get this grant. There is a lot of interest in it. There's a lot of communities, a lot of entities that are applying for it. There is, we expect that there will be more applications and money that's available. This is not a scoring system, so the applications are not scored. They're either determined to be compliant and are brought into the system, or they're not and they're rejected. And it's likely to be some sort of lottery system. So our fingers are crossed if you...
Is this the only grant that's available?
This is the best grant program that I've seen available in my career. And there really is very little grant money available on the wastewater side. There are the low interest loan programs like through the state revolving fund and through USDA, but there are almost no grant programs available for us.
What I see really occurring here is the state of Michigan is implementing the rules on wastewater treatment plants and removal of stormwater and all these improvements which are going to be required. They let people apply for the S2 grant several years ago to do studies of their system, but what they're recognizing is that communities aren't having the revenue to even design, to go through the design portion of it. So I think this is the state of Michigan's plan, is to incentivize those communities to make significant improvements in their asset management systems as well as their wastewater treatment plant planning and design. And that's how they're trying to do this. They're trying to incentivize by this 90-10 grant, which in itself is amazing for the first $1 million. And then for the second million, a 75-25 match. Based upon our debt load and all the work we've done over the past 16 to 17 years, approximately 20 plus million, at how much? Approximately 20 to 21 million that debt load which we're currently carrying based upon these previous projects. It puts us in an amazing opportunity to be qualified for 0% match for both $1 million. So we could potentially get that $1,905,000 without any local match.
But once you go over 2 million, then you gotta match it, right?
But you can't go over 2 million. The grant,
Yes, anything over 2 million is 100%.
That's why, I'm coming back to my comment, not to exceed.
Yeah.
Because once you go over there, I think what, if you default, you've got 25% pay within 90 days, right? Did I read that right?
can you ask that question one more time, please?
If you go over $2 million, or even on the proposed 1.9, the way I understood it,
I can answer your question.
okay,
This grant program is a reimbursement
I
base.
understand that.
So anything that, if we were awarded this grant and as we spend money towards it, we then seek out reimbursement from the state, and they will reimburse us past the $1.9 million. But the other thing I would like to point out is, this is simply asking for you to approve the resolution that allows the city to make the application for the SAW grant and provide or agree to the professional service agreement with Spicer, which is required as part of the grant submittal. Once if the state selects the city of Manistee as a grant recipient, then they will confirm whether or not we are disadvantaged, and we will know whether or not we have match or not. And we would come before council, have to come back before council in order to accept that grant and enter into the agreement with the state.
There's always a second bite to the apple on the grant applications, and that is the actual council approval of accepting a grant if we're awarded it.
But again, we've talked in the past, though, if we've gone for a grant and then turned it down, that never looks good for the city of Manistee.
True.
Two questions I have, Jeff. When let's say we go into this, when would we know, when did this election, when does the random draw happen, the lottery?
According to Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we should know by March, April of 2014.
2014. And then the follow-up question to that, let's say we are not selected as one of those lucky lottery winners. Do we have a contingency plan to meet the requirements of the 1996 program for sewer separation of Ramsdale and Fifth? And that's so we're supposed to have that by 2016, right?
Without this grant program, this S2 grant and the SSCS study puts together an application, a complete SRF submittal program, so that we will be submitting that to the state of Michigan, and it sets us in line to be able to borrow 2.25%.
Okay.
It starts that process.
SRF stands for Sewer Revolving Fund.
Oh, okay.
State of Michigan Sewer Revolving Fund, which has funded the vast majority of our...
We use a couple acronyms, so thank you for
Who are you dealing with DEQ or Jankowski?
Yes.
Brian is the primary contact anymore.
Brian is the district director now.
Yeah. Well, I would state, except for Brian, the vast majority of the other members of the MDEQ that you had spent a considerable time with
Are gone.
all gone.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, all
I
gone.
remember
They're
Brian.
retiring.
Huh?
They're retiring.
Yeah. Join the crowd, eh? No.
So if we get this grant, we do this asset management in place, and it determines that we've got work to do in our sanitary sewer systems, are we obligated to fix those in a certain time frame because we received this grant?
Right now, we put together a capital improvement program within our departments every year. And so we look at things that we know are ending their life. We know that things are regular maintenance budgets. So we are internally projecting that. What this program does is take the life cycle of all of those components, much like we did this year with our motor pool, to update the motor pool. And it requires you to then forecast out and plan for those improvements, replacements, new purchases systematically. So we would have to compare the results of that program to the funding levels that we have today, and whatever gap, if there's a gap in there, then we're required to make substantial progress. And the state has determined substantial progress as getting 10% of the way towards meeting those funding requirements within the first 3-year period.
Oh, so what happens if you can't?
You pay back.
I think you pay back the grant.
The 1.9 million. So in essence, we are committing to the improvements that are found in this asset management plan. Otherwise, we're in, and we would have to pay back that loan. Whereas if we did this asset management in some form on our own, that's required in 2015, we would not have those same type of requirements upon us.
You certainly don't have that string attached to you, but you're $1 million further in expenditures right off the bat because you've had to pay for the whole asset management plan internally. Probably could trim some of that out of there, but you still have a substantial funding.
But again, part of that 1 million we're using for something we already have to spend that money on anyway, so really that amount is smaller. My concern is, yeah, it sounds like a really great deal up front. My concern is down the road, 3 years down the road, when we potentially may have some sanitary sewer things that we need to fund, that we just can't come up with the funding. And if that's the case, then we will have to pay that this grant back. And that's my concern.
Yeah, but you ain't, if I'm right, you only have to pay, all you have to do is 10% of the improvement that's been identified, the cost of that, right?
Correct.
So, even at that, you're looking at $190,000 to do 1.9 million, if they just plain one of those segments,
You
it'll
have
be
to close
extremely
that gap
less.
by 10% over 3 years.
If the funding gap says that we're underfunded in replacing our assets by $10 million, we would have to raise $1 million in capital over the first 3 years following the grant acceptance in order to meet that requirement. So that gap would need to be at $10 million in order for this to be a break-even proposition.
Run that by me again, I didn't understand what you said.
If the equipment and replacement, the maintenance and equipment replacement within the sanitary sewer system came out at $10 million, $10 million more than what we're currently funding, then we would need to make substantial progress in order to not pay the grant back, which is defined as 10% of that $10 million over a 3-year period. So we would need to generate $1 million of capital towards those replacement items in the first 3 years.
Or we have to pay the 10 million back. But if we raise the million.
Or you'd have to pay the 1.9 million.
1.9,
Yeah.
And that's a pretty substantial.
I think the upside far outweighs the risk.
Yeah, so Mayor Kenny's point is that there are things that we don't know of that we may find. It's not just equalization basin aspect. The equalization basin is one part of that. We know we have to do something with that excess stormwater to get that off, to allow us to eliminate outfall 18. So we know we have to do that, so that's one thing. Mayor Kenny's concern and highlighting is the fact that we may find that there are deteriorated storm sewer lines in Maxwell Town or some other area that the DEQ will determine that is deficient and needs to be upgraded over with a certain time frame. And then by taking this particular grant, we're also locking ourselves into making steps and progressive steps towards making those improvements in the future also. So it's not just what we have committed to towards in the 1996 grant. This also will make future commitments towards us to making substantial improvements, or as Jeff has alluded to, in the future based on what we find with the wastewater asset management sanitary sewer plant.
I understand that completely, but from my perspective is that when you're talking about if we're going to find those things out anyway, in the long run, and be committed to that project. This allows us to leverage funds maybe at zero match if we are determined as a stress or distress to the city. And I think that the commitment to that project is already there from the 1996 agreement we have with the state.
Not necessarily.
I don't.
The 300,000 is, the 295,000.
Right. So, again, I feel like that from a leverage standpoint and a risk reward standpoint, it makes sense to at least, because again, we're making across those problems anyways, and we're going to commit, we're going to commit resources to them, and not get any state funding or not get any grants.
I think the asset management programs for all of our physical facilities, it's just good business.
But there's just, as Mayor Kenny alluded to, there's still a caveat attached to that asset management plan.
Absolutely.
There's a carrot and a stick, and this is the carrot, but there's also the stick behind the stakes.
Well, we must have some kind of feeling of what kind of problems we have out there in the enterprise tag to it.
Well,
I mean, we have feelings about, you've got a good feeling on the operation and stuff.
Well,
You look for any big ticket things that,
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's the physical collection system, so it's the pipes and manholes, which we monitor a third of the city, so a third of the city every year gets reviewed. We are not looking down the pipelines themselves. This would allow us to do that. The pump stations, we've been in a routine program of rebuilding and enhancing those, so we know that at least half of those are in a very good condition right now, and we know that others need some help, and so we are systematically budgeting for those capital expenses every year. And then the wastewater treatment plant's in the same position. We just went through an expansion of that plant and upgraded most of the items that are needed. There are still a lot of the telemetry and parts that burn out, used up, and so we're also budgeting those on an annual basis. So I would be surprised if the gap is that extreme. But it could be.
We've never done the asset management plan, so this is somewhat new to us. You would probably have as good a feeling towards that as anyone on council would from your history in the plant. One of the questions was made about, I think some people are trying thinking, can we extend or eliminate the closure of CSO 18? I think our best bet with the state of Michigan is to get an extension on that. I don't think there's any ability for us to not ultimately close off CSO 18. And that is going to happen from everything that the DEQ said. We may be able to buy some more time, as Jeff has alluded to, but I don't want anyone to have the feeling that we might be having the ability to negotiate our way out of closing off that CSO. I don't see that in our cards.
Jeffrey, why don't you make a comment? What happens when we do away with the overflow at Fifth and Ransom? Why don't you explain what happens to the sewer system in people's basements and stuff? What's going to happen?
With equalization, I would say,
Without the equalization, just closing it now. Give everybody.
I actually plotted out our flow chart for the plant since the storm hit Sunday. And keep in mind that our average daily flows are about 700,000 to 800,000.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I know, I've been through it.
I'll start talking to it. This line here is the million gallons. So this is our average flow rate for the entire year. This is pretty typical during the night. Flows get down to 600,000 or so. And then it started to rain. And so we saw spikes that went up over 1.5 million gallons. Then it went down a little bit, and then when the next part of that front went through, it went right off the chart. So the equivalent.
just for Councilmember Whitlock, we have a 1.3 MGD plant, million gallons a day plant, is what our current plant is rated at. So we're looking at that kind of digital basis.
This is 1.3.
Okay, thank you.
Our flows are normally just below 1 million on an annual average, and the plant can handle sustained flows of about 1.6 to 1.7. And then but at that point, we have to actually close the gate. So when the plants spike up to the 3 million, this may have gone past 4 million because it's right off our chart, we physically have to close a gate that restricts the flow of sewage into the plant. And so when that happens, we then restricted the flow back to this point, which is about 1617, and we left it on all night long. That resulted in a combined sewer overflow. That backed up sewage all the way from the treatment plant, all the way up 8th Street, all the way up Kosciuszko Street, all the way up 5th Street, until it got to Ramsdale. Then the sewage level backs up to a point where it goes over a weir and it gets discharged out through the storm sewer to Manistee Lake. So this was our flow chart for Monday, or I'm sorry, for Sunday. All of yesterday, when the operators came in at 6 o'clock, they opened up that gate all the way to let a large rush of water go through that plant to see if they could break flow, which means they break up all the hydraulic load that's back behind that gate and try to get it back down. Normally this would come back down to the 1.5, 1 range. It stayed up at 2 million gallons a day, and then we closed the gate back down when we closed for the day, when the employees went home, and let the plant run at 1.7, and you can see it just starts barely tailing off. Today, we see something really strange. And when they opened up the gate again, and they let everything that was backed up in the pipelines through, it plugged up the plant with leaves. So there was a tremendous amount of leaves that are coming in from unknown sources. Some of them have been identified by AvMarsh and SSES, some of them have not. So when the bar rakes plug up with the leaves, and we filled about half a dumpster today of leaves, then it makes the flows, very erratic. If we didn't have the ability to overflow on Sunday back to Manistee Lake, it just keeps building up in the system until it stores the sewage in basements. I mean, that's what we're trying to not make happen.
The whole lining part of the town would be, the basements would be flooded right on out. You go right down Kosciuszko, 8th Street, this one will go in right down through 7th Street, we'll get it, everything. All the basements will be flooded if nothing goes over with the Ramsdale. And it would be flooded deep. It won't be just a little bit, it'll be a lot.
Okay, so we apply for this grant, we get the grant. What's the time frame of when all this has to be completed?
The submittal is December 2nd. They have 120 days to review the applications, and so that March-April window is when they'd be looking at awards. And then basically from that point on, it's a 3-year, you have 3 years to complete, to have substantial progress. And that varies on the asset management for wastewater. It's that showing the funding structure and ability to close that gap that Jeff was talking about in the sanitary. On the stormwater, we didn't talk about that. It's basically, you don't have to, there's no funding source, and so they like you to show a plan, but there's no requirements that you have to fund that. They basically they just want you to show that you're aware of the system, you understand it, and you've studied it, and here's some of the situations or problems. And then finally on the design, once those design components are complete and the grant's awarded, the construction needs to be started within 3 years. And so,
Okay, the grant is for the study and the creation of this asset management plan. Is that correct?
correct. There's 3 parts. There's an asset management plan for storm, for wastewater, and then a design component.
Okay. And how long is the time frame from developing that asset management plan? What's that design? How long?
To actually inventory the system, identify the assets.
Right.
It's going to take a year or two, I would say, to get through. We'll spend the first summer collecting a lot of data, and one of the big components is inspecting the manholes and televising the pipes and rating them. And as you can imagine, a lot of these televising crews are being sought after by every city and village in the state. And so I would normally say we could get that done no problem this coming next 2014 summer. The only thing that could throw a wrench in it would be just the availability of these subcontractors. But most likely by the end of next summer, we'll have a lot of the field work done, and spend probably the winter of 2014 and 15 compiling that together, getting into a GIS database, so you can start seeing the results and the findings, graphically or however we're going to present it. But
So the longer that takes to compile, that shortens up really the time frame that the city would have to recognize how much funding they'd have to come up with and get that in place to meet that 3-year time frame.
That's true. Yes, in the end, at the end of 3 years, you need to show that substantial progress and make it.
So the 3 years includes this whole,
Fact finding,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So you're right, it's probably in the last year and a half, where you start to really find out, understand your system, identify costs and lay it out. And we'll do everything in our power to accelerate that, but you're right.
It just means we need to really work off some estimates and really start working towards what any potential gap finding that we would see down the road.
Well, yeah, I was going to get to that. Is there anything in the study that will end up into the NDPDS permit?
Say that again, please.
Is there anything when they perform the study and get everything done with your assets management plan and stuff like that and submit it to the state, any of this will end up in our NDPDS permit? You gotta watch out for that one. We find it and they'll put it in there and now you're stuck with it.
It's a good question. I know the asset management as a whole will be required as an NPDS in 2015 regardless, and the guidelines for the SAW and the guidelines for the future NPDS permit are very similar. There's some little differences. So I think it's very possible, Councilman Foltz, that it could be in there. The overall asset management plan, specific line items, I'm not sure if they'd write those in. That's an excellent question that I don't know if anybody knows the answer right now.
I have a question about.
They'll either be in today or tomorrow. They'll be in regardless.
Yes, when you start conducting the asset management plan and the assessments and all those things, we don't have to wait till the absolute end of that assessment to start doing some of the work, right? I mean, we can start finding some low-hanging fruit that would have to be replaced anyways, along with what Mayor Kenny's talking about. Do we have to wait till the full 1.5, 2 year study is completed to start working on anything?
You're not required to do the work actually. The substantial progress is actually showing you're laying out financially a plan to close the 10% of that gap. So really, you're not even, what happens is you're laying out a 20-year plan of proposed fixes. And like was mentioned earlier, the proposed fixes are going to be along the lines of a sewer that needs to be lined, it's failing, it's got a lot of roots. We're talking about the conveyance system. And so as we find those, you lay out those costs on top of the things you're already doing today, and you're doing a lot, so it's important to know that we're not going from zero. But you lay a plan out for that, so you don't need to do any construction the first 2
Well,
years.
we're not even putting a shovel in the ground yet,
No, this is to,
just to assess.
yeah, you have over 3,000 structures that are in your systems. They have over 80 miles of pipe that needs to be looked at and analyzed and assessed.
But my point being, the sooner that we know, the sooner we can start trying to close that gap. Instead of maybe only having 1.5 years, we start working on it.
Well, that's what I mean, if we start that assessment and we start getting some of that data and we see, okay, these are things we're going to need to plan for the next couple of years, we can start building it in to our strategic plan and our budgeting process for capital management, capital assets, and make sure that we're not going to wait for 3 years and then say, oh, well, now we've got 20 years and $200 million worth of work to do.
Sean, we know through the SSES that we identified, I think, roughly 100 inflow locations into our system right now, approximately that. As we start closing those off, Jeff got to start, I mean, I know some require designs, some don't require designs. As we start closing those off, and the ones we have closed off, can those also be used as local match towards that 10% in trying to close that gap financing that you and Jeff have been referring to?
I'm not sure if they really can. I know they can do some force account work, some money can flow back towards the city from the grant. Actually using that as a match doing that work, I would have to check it out. I don't believe so.
Okay.
One more question. When we accept this, when we say in 3 years, we're gonna look at the funding for what we find through this asset management when we get done. But we also know through asset management, that's a living document that we keep updating year after year. Will this require us then year after year, is it at one point in time that we have, the state will say you have to pay back, you know, you always have to have that funding in place? Or is this going to be a continuous thing that we're going to have to always show the state where we are with our funding versus what we need to?
They don't allude to that in the grant application. They basically talk about a 20-year capital improvement plan being prepared as part of this document. And I think they're assuming that you're going to continue to do asset management. They're trying to plant the seed and how they're going to do that. But I don't know if they're going to be requiring year after year a specific submittal. That's another good question.
Okay, and I just want to know, it's going to be a point in time, we've identified this, here you need to fund, you know, how are you going to fund that? Because things change year after year, and something could come up, and I'm just wondering, is this putting us on the line?
The pattern on the state has been to do just exactly what you've been doing, whether it be the Economic Vitality Incentive Program. We are being forced to, through changes of the GASB finance accounting measures, we're being forced to comply more and more and more and supply more and more and have these ongoing continuous maintenance programs. So I believe it's a fair assumption that you're making that the state of Michigan is moving down that direction to requiring this on an annual basis. I know they're not saying that in this particular grant application, but I think if you look at the practice of the state and the past practice of the state and how they have been moving as an organization, I think it's a fair assumption to make that you're correct, and that's the direction they're pushing towards.
Then at what point does that liability of having to repay that grant back end? I mean, I understand you want to keep up that asset management and how you're going to fund that, but at what point does that liability that we're going to end up having to pay the state back, one point, is that after 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? I mean...
I know it's
a good question. The specific plan says you need to show, it's really a 5-year plan. You need to cover in the first 3 years 10% of the gap. And so what they're looking at is to cover the gap probably over a 5-year period, but they don't speak any past 5 years.
I like that train of thought a lot, and Lloyd and I were willing to say, hey, we approved that you move ahead with the submittal of the grant, but it sounds like we had a lot of pretty significant questions regarding the acceptance of that grant, but that's still going to be another opportunity for us if it comes to fruition in April or March or April, as you said. Is there a way for us and Jeff and the Spicer Group to look into some of the questions that we've had and feel, get a feel for those? Because I hate to, I think it's great to move forward with the idea, but before we accept the grant, I do think some of these questions, especially that long-term debt obligation, would definitely need to be answered for me.
I think long-term debt obligation, and I think looking at, I'm assuming, Sean, you've done some other asset management plans for other communities? Yes. Maybe taking some similar type communities, similar age infrastructure projects, similar age of our sewer collection system, similar mileage of our sewage collection system, number of 3,000 number of structures to our sewer collection system, and maybe look at what some have been their outcomes of the asset management plan. That might also, it wouldn't be an apples to apples perfect comparison,
No, couldn't be.
but it surely can give you some valuable insight to what we may be experiencing. The reality is we have an old system that needs to be maintained. It's an old system that has long-term maintenance issues.
No matter what we do, we're going to have to complete this whole project, whether we get the grant or we don't get the grant. Eventually.
You will not have to do the asset management from storm sewer.
Right.
That would not be required, but the other two ultimately will be required.
We're going to have to do it. Yes.
You probably wouldn't need, as Jeff alluded to, you probably wouldn't need to do such an extensive asset management for the sanitary sewer if you're paying for it out of user rates. So we're paying for it out of utility user rates. Most likely we would pare that down. If we have an opportunity to get 0% funding, 0% financing, or funding for that, or local match, then we would include more into that particular opportunity than if we were funding it entirely on our own.
So that 3 years, we just have to show substantial progress, or is that a drop dead?
If there's a gap.
If there's a gap.
There's a potential that says you are replacing components as they need to be replaced, and are doing the proper job to it. From my perspective and being responsible for the systems, I would rather have a full inventory, know what to expect, know how to budget that in the next, 5 to 10 years, and be able to plan for those things. I think that's a good way to manage the system.
John, did it make sense that you could look at some of your previous communities that you've done this asset management and look at some similar communities such as us, so we can get a kind of a ballpark as to what the other communities have found?
Yes, and
Try to get back to Mary.
the specifics of how they lay out asset management here, I think Jeff has done asset management, the city's really done asset management, but this is kind of formalizing a lot of things we've done. So what I would look at is other communities where we've done televising, radio systems, and what we find in the 50-year-old clay pipes, what does it mean, lower the cost of line, those kind of things we can get a sense of. It's just like your taser rating, and the whole other issue with the streets is very similar. You're going to have a better understanding, and then you can start to identify how to progress, which is probably something we've actually been doing. Maybe a little bit reactive, this would be a little bit more proactive, but it's similar to past practices, really. It's formalizing it. And there's communities that aren't very well organized, and I think the DEQ is trying to get them organized.
So they're reviewing for the SAW grant, they're going to review it for completeness of the application. They're not going to be scoring it as to Manistee scores higher than St. John's or St. Joe's times more than Grand Haven. If it's complete, it's complete. It goes in the hopper. There's currently 90 million available.
Yeah, so
97, excuse me. Thank you for.
So there's $450 million approximately total in the program. The first year they have 97 million. I think about 5 million is going towards some different programs. So 90+ million is available for these first rounds. And it's first come, first served. December 2nd being the first day you can submit. You can submit prior to December 2nd, but everything is date stamped December 2nd prior to that date.
Everyone's submitting December 2. Don't make any bones about it. Every community that's interested in this application is doing everything they can, just like we are, to get their application in on December 2nd. And I'm going to guess they're all asking for $2 million or 1.9 million. Right. I mean, that's just going to be the reality of the grant that they set up.
I can tell you our firm is submitting around 20 of them probably. I know there's a lot of bigger firms submitting 80 or 50, 60, just a handful of firms, at least 200 submittals I know more than one.
Are they talking at all, Sean, about having a second round of submittals in future years?
So what'll happen, what I've heard, and nobody's put it in black in writing, but basically what they've said is, so we know we're going to probably have the 97 million taken out the first round of grants. And so everybody comes in, we'll be date stamping, we'll probably have a whole stack there December 2nd. They'll draw those, get the first 97 million. And so there'll still be some left on the stack. Those will be, in essence, the first in line for 2015 or 2014. The next round of draw, when the money becomes available.
This is probably 2015, because they're going to draw this in 2014.
Right.
So it'll be 2015 round for that.
And they'll keep drawing out of it. And in between that, what'll happen if additional grants may come in, they'll be at the bottom of the pile. If it's incomplete, they'll review it and they'll go back into the pile in the order it came in, so you may lose a spot based on completeness. And they'll do that until the money's, so it's caught up or it's completely gone.
So if we don't necessarily get it this year, there's potential to get it in 2015, 2016,
Correct.
until that 450 million is done.
And assuming that the state doesn't put more funds into it,
Right.
based upon their desire to get this program moving forward.
So there's no cutoff date really. I mean, the opening date is the 2nd, but there's no cutoff date until the money's gone.
Correct.
Every quarter they accept applications from then on, but the majority of them will probably already be in, I'm guessing.
They're going to be standing in line.
I think it's going to be like Black Friday. I think the Constitutional Hall is going to be kind of a circus on the side.
Yeah.
We need to get you to the front of the line.
We're going to try to down the kids.
We're pretty, if the council approves this, we're pretty close to having that document ready to be submitted early.
Again, submitted early means date stamp December 2nd.
Oh,
It just means that Sean or Jeff's not standing down there on December 2nd waiting in line. or millage, whatever it may be. So we will endeavor, before the grant, assuming we are selected through the lottery system, which is, I think it will be, we would endeavor to address more of the questions, get more information of the long-term debt that Mayor Kenny has identified and you substantiated, Councilmember Gustat, as well as taking a look at some similar sanitary sewer collection system, asset management plans for similar age systems to Manistee, and seeing what some of those results have brought forth, so you have a better understanding about what could be coming to fruition with our asset management plan. Is there any additional information that we can provide? Okay.
Any other questions?
Good, thank you.
Michelle, can you please take the roll?
Councilmember Cody,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunkel,
Yes.
Councilmember Goodstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Zaring,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitler,
Yes.
Councilmember Gustat,
Yes.
and Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next we'll move.
Thank you for your time on that. I know that was a long discussion, but I appreciate everyone's comments and insightfulness.
Next, we'll move on to notices, communications, and announcement. A regular part of each council meeting is a report from a cooperating agency, organization, or department. Tonight, we'll hear from Dave Bachman, our harbor master, who will report on the activities of the Harbor Commission, and Jeff McCullough, who will report on the activities of the DPW Parks and Trees Commission.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. We almost got this done a couple weeks ago. I'm here tonight representing Tom Smith, the chairman of the Harbor Commission. He couldn't make it today. The Harbor Commission is made up of members including Tom Smith, the chairman, Rosemary Daniels, Roger Zelensky, Ty Cook, Shelley Memberto, Alex Zacanelli, and myself are voting members. City Manager Mick Dice is a non-voting member of the Harbor Commission, and Cindy Lackovich is the reporting secretary. The purpose of the Harbor Commission is to provide recommendations to the City Council concerning the following items. First and foremost, operation, maintenance, and policy concerning the city marina and the city-operated boat launches. Improvements involving the marina and the boat launches. Acquisition of waterfront property, wharves, and docks. The use of waterways, channels, municipal docks, and other city navigation facilities, and ordinance rules regarding public safety. The Commission, by ordinance, is required to meet quarterly. This Commission has added 3 additional meetings to schedule in order to stay connected with the harbor and the during the marina season. So we meet quarterly plus 3. Things are running smooth on the Commission under the leadership of Chairman Tom Smith. Tom has the Commission focused on 2 important tasks this year: a strategic plan and a marketing plan. Our strategic plan was brought to us, facilitated by Kathy Adair and Tim Irvin from the AES office. We convened a couple of meetings actually, with the Commission to bring it to a consensus about priorities and a mission for the Harbor Commission. While I've seen the draft of the final document, the Harbor Commission has not seen it, so it's not been voted on or accepted by the Harbor Commission. I expect that we'll be doing that in the January meeting. I feel comfortable sharing some of the highlights, however, of the strategic plan. The plan will give us an opportunity to focus our efforts on specific items, including key stakeholders on the Commission itself, facility improvements, including launch sites like the 9th Street boat launch, participation and collaboration, and forward-looking activities such as best practices from other facilities and achieving grants, etc. Our marketing promotions is chaired by Ty Cook. Myself and Shelley Memberto are members on the Marketing Commission or group, as is Mayor Lee Cook, who is Ty Cook's wife. She's an advertising executive, been very instrumental in helping us get some things published. She works with me on all of our ads and helps me make decisions on what we should spend our money on. So she's a very effective individual who does a lot of good work for us for free. Our areas of focus: we're going to look at increasing revenues and frequency of use and potentially mooring balls in the Manistee Lake area, or perhaps between the pierheads. Special promotions and seasonal slips.
we did find out that, we've known all along, that we're busy during July and August, and we're hoping we can focus some marketing money towards June and September to try to fill those slips when they're empty, rather than just having marketing money spent the whole season when we don't try to target stuff. We're going to use sales and marketing to target markets. Fishermen in particular are big to us at that time of year. A lot of tournaments used to be hosted out of the city marina, but because there were so many boats, they now got moved all over the place. They go out of Winnacunnet, they go out of Ludington, and Sang Marina picks up quite a few as well. We're hoping to start targeting some of those fishermen, getting them back in our marina with a specific campaign. Say, for instance, stay for 2 days, get a day for free, whatever the state of Michigan allows us to do. Looking at expanding our services and amenities as a convenience to voters, stuff like weather information, directions. We'd like to improve the patio area. This is grassy area next to the building there that we have a picnic table on it and stuff. It'd be better if it was cement, sand concrete, something would be easier to use. Right now the sprinklers work. Hopefully we're not having a barbecue. Website and social media development is going to be a focus. We also, the marina was working on a dredge project. The city was awarded money from the state of Michigan, about $24,000 to a dredging project of our deepest slips because we had low water early in the season. For us, it's been a hurdle putting that project together. We estimated the project to be about $25,000, including engineering costs. We went out for bids. First bid came back about $88,000. It was absurd almost. We decided we weren't going to do the project. We were in contact with the state of Michigan, Paul Peterson, who encouraged us to do the project. They had extra money and felt they could fund that at that level. City manager and I both were uncomfortable because we felt it was way overpriced. It was way overbid. We did, at the urging of the state of Michigan, pursue additional bids trying to get that back. We got 3 additional bids. We went to Swiderski Brothers, came in as a low bid, about $45,000. The state of Michigan has asked us to sign a contract with Swiderski Brothers for about $45,000. They would pay all of the additional costs. There was no additional cost to the city, in addition to what they already offered us at $24,000. We had engineering fees of about $12,000 that they were paying. I don't think there's really a whole lot of money out of our budget at all, but they had additional funding and wanted to go ahead and do the dredging and pay Paul Swiderski, and specifically asked us to sign with Mr. Swiderski a contract to do the dredging, which will happen in about April. That will be on your agenda. I think December 3rd is where it's scheduled if I get the contract back to Mr. Sheriff. And that's pretty much where we're at.
What kind of year did you have with the marina this year and the boat launch?
I don't have information on the boat ramp. That would probably give you a better idea on the boat ramp's finances. We had what I would consider a fair year, not the best year we've ever had. We had bigger boats in, but not as many bigger boats. We were completely full, probably 10 days where we had to pump people to other places, but we were substantially full from July 15th all the way through the end of August. I don't believe we had our revenue marks this year, and I'd have to wait for Ed to come up with an audit to give us the exact numbers. I don't believe we had our revenue numbers, which is part of the focus of the marketing commission. Hopefully we can target more voters, get more people in there early and late season.
We have been tracking, and I can say I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we are tracking now for the last couple of years boat launches from boat launch revenue month to month to month. So I can easily get that to show you what the boat launch revenue is from month to month coming in. But what that doesn't track, it doesn't track the number of people who have already bought one permit or are using the facility over and over and over. But from a revenue standpoint, it gives you a pretty good understanding about where we were at this year compared to last year. And I'll make sure that information is provided to council.
Thank you.
I know in Wings Point City, they had done that, like that poker type run. And I know it was just busy that one time. Any idea or talks of collaborating with organizations to do something?
We discussed that, and I asked Point City to send me their stuff in incorporated, and I never got it from them.
Oh, okay.
I probably should pursue that again. I was hoping that I could get Frank Pope to the Harbor Masters Conference in January, but I don't think he's available to go. Frank did a good job of networking with those folks and trying to come up with new ideas. So we're gonna have to either, I'm gonna have to go or work some other arrangement out there, get Frank over there.
Yeah, I can remember if they partnered with the organization and helped with it to get all those votes in there. I don't remember, but I remember them saying that they were just swamped. And again, it's just a one weekend, but you may get new voters who see the facility and want to come back.
We have spent a lot of money on marketing and billboards and stuff and advertising. And I don't know that I'm feeling that we're getting a big enough return on those marketing dollars because we're still hitting the same people coming back that are there in July and August. So that's where we're really going to try to focus a little bit on advertising and reaching out to people April, May, and June, trying to get them in there in June.
Can you piggyback with any of the Pure Michigan programs through the CVB?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think Marilee can answer that question better than I could. Marilee's very tied into what we're doing, how we're doing it. We have Pure Michigan logos on our advertisements. We put magazines, we market that way. But again, those are still, in my mind, still pretty generalized population. I don't know if they're going to reach out, someone's going to pick up that book and say, oh, I'm ready to Manistee in June. You need to find something happening in June and get people coming here in June rather than them all showing up.
You talked a little bit about the website, social media. Is that something that we haven't had in place?
Well, we have it. We have a Facebook page, and we also have a website. We all believe that there's we get more use out of it, we get more marketing. Frank uses our social media, our web page up for Facebook, and there's a lot of people that pay attention to it because he puts a lot of information out there about freighters. While that helps a lot of people in the community, it's not really getting votes in the arena, but it is getting us noticed. And perhaps when people notice that and we see the rating, we want to come and visit us earlier. We just need to find a way to.
Along that with, and then if you can connect with folks from a email standpoint, electronic media is just it's a great way to get a lot of people and target the right people. So I commend it and encourage you to continue on that trend because voters have money and they have computers and they visit places before they visit places, and I think that electronic media is something that is becoming more and more prevalent with regards to destinations and people investigating them before they get there. So
I've been here for 15 years, and every May 15th open, no one showed up. And end of June, it's like, where are the boats? And they just don't come north as a vacation destination.
Well, warm
July. Exactly. It's not warm yet. The season hasn't kicked off, but we got to find another reason. And salmon fishing is hot in June.
Yeah.
It's not till August, September. So we got to find some promotion or something to get them up there. I'm actually, I know some neighbors have boats, and like, why don't you put your boat in the arena for the month of June? We'll give you a deal. $200 put the boat in for the month of June. Yeah, I'm going to do it, but then they never show up. It's just like the driveway, you don't go out and they don't boat that much. We're working on it.
Have we had lots of good comments on the marina building itself from the voters?
We've got nothing but good comments.
Good.
We send out postcards, we get back 4 or 5 out of about 50. But all of them are glowing in terms of the facility, the staff, Frank and Laura in particular. Just very happy with what they do.
I know I'm on the Riverwalk in the morning and the staff is out there. They always greet me and greet people that are walking and, trying to keep the place clean.
Of all the things that the Harbor Commission has kind of pushed me to do, that was probably had the greatest impact, besides perhaps the kiosk out there on the dock, for the Harbor Commission idea.
I have one question, and I don't know this, so do we market or sell the slips as a flat fee or per foot?
We have some seasonal slips that we can sell at a flat fee. Our revenue, or our policy typically says we can sell 7 seasonal slips because we're a transient marina. And then when you come in for the day, it's based on the length of your boat. So the longer the boat, the more about a foot for a transient slip. For instance, the Coast Guard is a seasonal renter of ours. So they keep a slip for fall weather. It costs them $5,500 a year to reserve that slip for the season, and they only use it in fall weather, but it's theirs all year round. A typical boater who wants to use a seasonal slip is about $3,000 somewhere for a 40-foot boat.
We have to comply with the state prices too.
Actually, the state has given us some latitude at the Harbor Commission to set our rates based on a grid. And we actually set our rate a little higher than what the state recommended for this side of the lake. Because of the facility, we want to bring some money back to put so much money in the building. So we're actually we're not the highest rate, which would be Mackinac Island, but we're higher than what the average rate would be for a municipal marina on the side of the lake. What the recommended rate.
Do we ever do polls or, I'm looking for the right word, surveys, thank you, on costs and what people are paying, let's say, in Ludington or Necoma or Frankfurt?
We know what they pay as a municipal rate, yes. We don't know what the private sector charges.
Oh, right.
All marinas that are municipal marinas that are funded by the state of Michigan, we know what they pay and what they charge. We're right in line with them. We're higher than some, lower than others. We're about the same with Ludington and Frankfurt, but probably go down the lake that they're last. And the probably go north, they get higher. And when I'm talking difference, I'm talking 10 cents a foot on a boat, not $1.10 a foot. So
That's not pushing it off the coast.
yeah, it might cost you 2 or 3 hours a night more for your boat than Whitehall.
And I know when we get our downtown moving, because my old boss at Fort Wayne, John Wynn, told me that when him and his wife would vote, they would love to come to Manistee. There wasn't enough to do here. Restaurants, shops.
That's a piece of it, no question about it. Hopefully the boat opens up, gets the movies, bring more rent. Food is the lack of a lot of options has an impact on that food.
Restaurants.
Any other questions? Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Now I hear from Jeff McCullough with fund activities, the DPW, Parks and Trees Commission.
Well, since you heard me speaking so much tonight already, I've got the pleasure of introducing two of our employees that will be doing the presentations tonight. We have Gary Neeson, who's our Parks lead person, and Brandon Prince, who is the Public Works lead person. So they're going to be taking you through the PowerPoints.
Good evening, I'm Brandon. I'll start first with the street side of it.
Okay.
First we'll go over the structure, kind of the streets department structure. We have 10 employees, 11 with myself. 3 of those employees are 6 months on the bridge, 6 months in the street department, especially in the winter months. They come in and do plowing for us and all the other activities we can have a part of. We have a full-time mechanic. We have a welder on staff, but with his experience and his knowledge of it, he's branched out to become a big part of us in our painting programs and stuff like that. And the other gentlemen take part in our daily activities that we do. In our street department, our city roadways, we have 18 square miles in our major area. Local streets, we have about 30. US 31, we got about 1.5 miles. And in total lane miles, including all the lanes, we have about 79 with the major and local combined, and about 6 miles in our US 31 corridor that we maintain for the state. Our fleet maintenance, we have about 53 vehicles in our fleet that we have one mechanic who maintains all those for us, and he also maintains the police equipment and at times the fire department pickup truck. So he kind of is on it all the time with things to do for our fleet. We do winter maintenance. We have 4 plow trucks that are out during a snowstorm that do 2 separate routes. So there's 4 out at a time, and we have 2 salters, one that follows each one of those routes in the winter months. We have a night shift that has 1 2-truck team that'll go out and do our majors and break off and do the locals. And then the parks department, in the event of a major storm, will come in and help out clearing roads with them as well. In our forestry department, we do the chipping, roadside chipping with the brush piles and stuff. We try to do those on Fridays. Our lists tend to become large when people call in throughout the weeks, and we'll try to jump out on a Thursday to kind of catch up to it. We go through and get, with the tree commission, people wanting trees removed from the right-of-ways, we will go in the winter months and remove those trees. And then obviously you can see in the pictures here, storm events. We go out and have to take care of things like that. You can see on the left, that's brush piles that come in after storm events. When we remove trees after we remove them, we come in, we have a private contractor come in to remove the stumps. Currently we are looking into hopefully putting that in an in-house task that we can do and do it cost effectively for us and the citizens. With the wood chips you can see here that we gain throughout the year, that's just part of the pile that we have, but we take it out to our compost with our leaf bag program and our pickup. In our leaf pickup program, which we're doing right now, this part of the season we're in the middle of, we take it all out to our compost, which is located off of Downchuck Road, and we turn it. You can see on the left, that's our bags that are now starting to deteriorate and come to black dirt. On the right-hand side, that's our black dirt piles that we use throughout the city for things like Blossom Boulevard. Every other year we'll go dig out the old dirt, put it in new black dirt what we have. When we do dig jobs for water department, sewer department, we will use that black dirt as well. Our street maintenance, you can see here in this picture, the reason I used it is the street, granted, is cracked and everything, but that was after a large thaw. The road became covered in water, and the next morning when that water went away, that's what was there. Just from that one sitting, they pop up quick, and you can see they're very large in size. So what we do to cure those things is we have a hot patcher, which is on the left, which heats it up, the cold patch, and then it adheres to the pavement better for us to put into those holes. We do street sweeping with the curbs, and you can see the machine on the right will do parking lots for us to disperse all the sand back to the beach area. This year we did alley maintenance. What we did was we went through the alleys, trimmed back branches that affected the cars driving through the alleys, and then we re-gravelled the places that had large holes, dips, things like that. We did some road upgrades this year. On the one on the left is Kosciuszko Street, which is redone by Elmer's from 8th Street to 12th Street. And then on the right, what we did was we went back to all our utility patches that we came into contact with over years and did the bad ones that were dipped and kind of rutted, dug those out, put in new gravel, did some compacting, and then we re-asphalted them with Elmer's came in and asphalted them. A big thing that we did this year was when we physically as a department came out, cut them, dug them out, put in the gravel, compacted, so they were ready for Elmer's to come in and just asphalt. It was a big savings for us financially when we got that opportunity to do it. They came back and said, you know, it saved you quite a bit, which is good for us, I think, as a whole. Some of the research we've been doing with our street maintenance, the manhole on the left is lipped. The asphalt's kind of settled, and our plow trucks, you can see on the bottom right of that manhole where it's kind of shiny, that's where a blade hits from the plow. Rather than tearing up the road, digging it out, trying to lower it a quarter of an inch, a half an inch, we had a company come in with this product. It's thermoplastic. It kind of surrounds the manhole, and then they heat it up. You can see the heat gun on the right. And what it does is it creates a smooth surface so there's no more of that impact. It just kind of glides over it, and it isn't so detrimental to the structure itself and the asphalt surrounding it. On the right-hand side, it's another thing they demoed for us was a thermoplastic road signage, I guess you'd call it. It's down by the fish station. We picked away a place that is heavily trafficked by plows to see what it'll hold up to in our circumstances, what we do plowing rather than painting. The painting wears off, we do it an annual thing. We're going to see what this does for us, and maybe this is a route we take that will be cost effective for us. We're doing some winter maintenance research right now with doing some liquids into our applications of our salt applications, brine, calcium chloride. We're trying to find out what works for us in every aspect. We're trying to price out equipment to see what it takes to put it on the ground, what it'll do for us, what's an efficient way to save measures down the road for us in snow events. Our bridge operations that we do, the 3 gentlemen that do it, 6 months a year, May to November. They run US 31 bridge, and then we have some non-union workers that do it on Maple Street at the same time. You can see here, there's a bridge, our boat coming through. On the right-hand side, that's Maple Street Bridge, where you can see kind of some of the upgrades that were just done to it, which is the control panel. It's quite elaborate. So they've got a lot of buttons to push when the boat's coming through. They do bridge maintenance yearly. They grease it, do checks. The guys on the left are public works employees that wash it yearly. You'll notice sometimes the bridge is blocked off. They'll go out with fire hoses and rinse the whole thing down with debris that's on it. On the right-hand side is MDOT along with Spicers, who do their semi-annual checks for the structure itself. We have Jim Polisky, who I talked about earlier, who is our welder. He comes and he does all our lights maintenance, to the street lights you see, to the stop lights you see. All those lights he maintains and keeps track of, and he also paints for us all our road markings. You can see him on the right painting. So he does those in the summer months. Obviously the light program he does year round, but he paints throughout the summer months all the markings, that the yellow, the blues, the whites you see. We do sidewalk replacements. We remove the sidewalks that are heaved and up by roofs and other things, and then we have a contractor come in and put the forms in and stuff for us, and of course the concrete. We did a little research. We had a company come in and show us, this is right outside City Hall here. You can see with that blue line there's a lip there. So this company comes in and has an idea to grind it, which creates a beveled edge, which takes away the tripping hazard, and it becomes a smooth surface, so the tripping hazard's gone. It seems cost effective, and we're right now in the research of seeing how it'll work for us. We do beach cleaning. We clean both beaches twice a week in the summer months. This year we tried where the gentleman would come in an hour early to kind of avoid running into early beachgoers in the mornings, and it seemed to work out real great for him, where he didn't feel like he was bothering anybody with a loud machine. But you can see there, it cleans the beach very well for us. It makes it look nice. We have fountain maintenance. Mr. Polisky himself maintains the fountain. He makes sure the chemicals are right, the pumps are working, the water's moving, lights are moving, or lights come on when they're supposed to and stuff. So he maintains that for us as well. Right now, I'll hand it over to the parks lead man, Gary Neeson, and he'll talk about the parks. Thank you.
Good evening. Our parks department consists of myself and one full-timer. This year we were able to get 7 seasonal employees to help us out. We have 15 parks that we actually maintain, cut grass, that kind of thing. Obviously, we do the grass cutting and the trimming, cleaning of the restrooms, which are 8 restrooms in town, public restrooms, twice a day, 7 days a week. Garbage, we usually put out about 150 garbage cans around the town throughout the parks. We cut private properties, and this year we contracted with the Housing Commission to do Century Terrace and Harbor View, and a couple of their facilities that they have up in Oak Hill by Reed's Park. We got 3 boat launches that we have to maintain. A couple of the parks upgrades that we took care of this year. One of the big ones were putting cement pads underneath all the bleachers. A lot easier to maintain for us, obviously. The only one, we did 14 pads this year, and the only park we have left is Mack Park. The other big upgrade that we did this year was at Lighthouse Park. We took out all of the bark, all of the weed barrier. On the right you can see we put all new weed barrier down, and PCA donated all the new wood chips, and I believe we put 11 truckloads of wood chips, and I think they're, I don't remember what they were, 15-yard trucks, maybe 20-yard dump trucks. So our young gentleman had quite a job. That's me and the little Bobcat. I took care of that shovel, and they took care of the manual shovel. They were real happy with me. They did a great job, I have to say. It took us about a couple weeks to get it out, in between the rest of our jobs, and then put the new stuff in. On the left there is what it actually looked like before we started, and on the right is what the finished product is. This year early this year we installed 4 pieces of new playground equipment, 2 at Duffy, 2 at Mack Park, which were, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but Christina Bike representing Great Start.
Collaborative.
She, I believe, came up with the money or whatever, and we wound up installing the new stuff for like your preschoolers or
0 to 6 and 6 to 2 was the targeted age for that. They determined that we were deficient in their research for the young kids in our community for developmental growth and developmental learning opportunities through play. So that was what this was intended to address.
The new beach house this year down at First Street. I can't say enough. It's been great so far. The new fish station. Obviously, we have the cleaning of the fish station. On the right-hand side is the plexiglass that was cleaned in the morning. So it is obviously being used well, and nothing but great compliments on it, I have to say. A couple of the maintenance issues that we have. The one on the left, obviously, is the vandalism that we deal with on a daily basis. On the right-hand side is the sand that we deal with on a daily basis. On the left, that's Lighthouse Park, some of the deterioration of the playground equipment, which was all replaced. Most of the stuff was fixed with what we could find at Lighthouse. On the right-hand side is Fifth Avenue Pier. Every time the wind blows, that's what we're up against, and it takes a bobcat to get it cleared. That is our barrier-free sidewalk down on First Street Beach. You wouldn't know it, but it's there someplace, which has to be shoveled off. We take and help with the help of the DPW. We assist in the festivals around in town, which happens to be about 19 of them. In different ways, we help out with what we can. There's the Christmas tree being loaded up this morning, actually, and get ready to stand up. Our cooperative efforts with the DPW, we work with them and they do a lot for us. On the left-hand side is, we were putting some stone at First Street Beach boat launch to try to stop that drop-off behind the sheep piling. And we're working with them. On the right-hand side is a snow fence that we put up for one, but that happens to be for the beer tent at the Forest Festival. Here, we're both working together, tearing down the old concession stand at First Street Beach. They help us with putting out the barrier-free sidewalks. They help us with the snow fence every fall. We help them, they help us. We're helping the water and the sewer department, digging water lines, sewer lines. On the right-hand side was our auction that we just had a couple weeks ago at the police department. And that's all I have. So this is Jeff's baby here.
Can you talk a little bit about the fact that we're putting snow fencing up differently on the beach? I've had several phone calls from residents about putting up different configurations of snow fencing.
Well, we really don't know if we're doing anything right when it comes to putting up snow fence. So this year we sat down, Brandon and I and Jeff, and we kind of went through a couple things. And so we're trying something different, and it actually is working the way we kind of thought it was going to work. Down at First Street, we put up, we've got a couple more rows of fence to put up so we can try to keep it off the road, but it's kind of working. We're kind of hoping that we can keep it on the beach rather than, so if you ride by and you see a lot of sand in the parking lot at Fifth Avenue, yeah, we'd rather have it in the parking lot than we would have it out on the road, so it's working.
The theory behind it is really that we've always placed snow fence parallel to the shoreline. And what we did this year is we anticipated the prevailing winds coming from the northwest. So we put double rows about 20 foot apart, angled to be perpendicular to those prevailing winds. And then we put some shorter sections in between because we know early in the season and then late in the season we'll be getting winds that shift out of the west and out of the southwest. So we're really trying to hit the biggest impact, and then we're going to be monitoring it this winter. And if we see that there's areas that aren't working or need an additional section, we'll go install those. The last 20 minutes of this presentation will be the tree commission. Actually, I just have 2 slides. The tree commission has met 3 times since I've been in this position, and the activities that they are responsible for as part of the city ordinance includes making recommendations to council for improvements to the city landscapes. They advise on trees, plants, and shrubs that should be located or can be located within the city's right-of-ways. They provide information and answer questions to property owners pertaining to trees. They provide advice on pruning trees in the city's right-of-way. They have been particularly helpful to us this year. This is a list of forms that people fill out at the Public Works office whenever they want a tree removed or pruned or looked at within the right-of-way. I had already given the tree commission a stack a little larger than this back in July, and they formed a committee, went through each and looked at each one of those applications, and have made a recommendation back to Public Works on how they think that tree should be handled, whether or not it's pruned or whether or not it's to the point where it needs to be removed. So I'll be giving them another stack in the near future, and then typically we perform those activities later in the wintertime in between the snow events, so that normally occurs in February. And then one of the things that they do as a group is they sponsor a chalk art contest for young children to make that part of the Forest Festival. And it has tremendous attendance, and I think it's been very successful. In this upcoming year, they've determined that the local match for planting trees through the city tree planting program will be $40, and that includes the cost of including a watering bag with them. So we did not advertise and do that program this year. Honestly, I just ran out of time. So we will be advertising in the newspaper in the late winter, and then we'll put together that program, bid out, and find a contractor who will provide the trees and install them, and we'll be, we've already been compiling a list of people that are interested. So that program will happen in the spring of 2014.
Great.
With that, all three of us would be happy to take any questions that we have on all three of the departments.
I have one question. How did the auction go, and were you able to dispose of a lot of the old assets that we're trying to get rid of?
We walked around the garage and found a lot of stuff from the Public Works and Parks Department. We did particularly well selling old mowers. And so we made arrangements with the Finance Department to be able to take that money and put it back into equipment and reinvest. I think the police and the sheriff department got rid of most of the items that they had, so I think it went well. There's some larger items that we will be putting on the internet and having a larger customer base that bid on more specific items like the truck that we've got down there. Some of the lighting that's from the ranch, so it's a little more specialized. So, yeah, it went well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate the presentation. It helps us remind us just how many parts and how much work there is out there
7 people.
with the staff. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the presentation of the first quarter financial report by our finance director, Ed Bradford.
Council, everybody should have gotten a copy of the first quarter investment report in their packets. There's two parts of the report. One side has a series of tables that show the numbers, but I thought it's best to look at it graphically, which basically presents the same information. What you can see here is we have investments by custodian, type, maturity, and then the earnings on the different investments of the city. And this is for the quarter ended September 30th. So if you take a look at the first pie chart, investments by custodian, the largest piece of that is Charles Schwab. They're the custodian for the oil and gas fund. We use Bartlett and Company as our investment advisor for that, and so that's by far the biggest slice of the pie there. The next biggest chunk are just basically at PNC Bank, $3.8 million, which is our primary banking relationship. If you look at investments by type, the bar chart to the right, the largest piece of that is equities, about $5.9 million, and that's all in the oil and gas fund. And then about $2.7 million in bonds, and those are also all in the oil and gas fund. Interest-bearing checking is about $4.6 million, and that's all of our basically operating funds for streets and for water and sewer and for general fund and things of that nature. If you take a look down at the investments by maturity in the lower left, you can see it breaks it down primarily by available money, which is cash or money market funds, and then equities. The rest of those shorter bars are for the laddered bond portfolio and the oil and gas fund, and those numbers are provided by our investment advisor. And finally, the bar chart to the right, the investment earnings, basically show the interest and what have you that's been earned on the different types of funds, whether it's oil and gas fund, water and sewer, general, and other. And we talked about this before, but I think this chart is really illuminating. If you look at our general fund, we earned about $73,000 in interest on that in 2007. That was down to about $2,500 in 2013, and that's a result of the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates at zero, basically. We don't have any place to invest our short-term operating funds. If you take a look at the oil and gas fund, in 2007, we had $307,000 in investment earnings. At that time, the oil and gas fund was totally invested in the laddered portfolio of CDs. In 2008, the state legislature, we worked with them through our Senator McManus to get a change in the investment law for the oil and gas fund. That allowed us to invest the oil and gas fund like a public pension fund, which is the exact same way that the state invests their natural resources trust fund. If we had not done that, the decline that you see in the general fund interest would have been mimicked in the oil and gas fund. Because at that time, we were limited to very short-term, very safe investments like CDs, money markets, and certificates of deposit, that sort of thing. We didn't have the option of going out to get equities and bonds. So by doing that, as you can see, we've been above that $307,000 every year, except for 2012 when we were at $290,000. Now, with that said, we've had an unprecedented run up in asset prices from 2008 to 2013, so that's part of the reason we have that. But the point being is that without absent that change, we'd have been several $million of less resources available to the cities to spend on projects. So that's been a very positive change. Obviously, market conditions can change, markets do go down, and that will impact this. But if you look at the value of the oil and gas fund today, it's just shy of $9 million, which is pretty impressive for a small community of 6,200. About $7 million and change of that is protected principal by the city's charter. Are there any questions on the investment report before I go on to the third quarter financial reports? Okay, I'm not going to belabor the point. I put a memo together here that basically talks about each of the major funds of the city. When you're only 1/4 of the way into the year, it's really difficult to project where you're going to end up. Very few trends have emerged. I tried to identify in my memo to you some of the things that are noteworthy so far. One question was asked in the boat launch where we were as opposed to last year. Most of our revenue in the boat launch comes in August and September. And for the first quarter of this year, our launch revenue is up about $4,600 or 21% from the year last year. So I think that answers at least part of the question that council had of Mr. McCullough. I think that was primarily no construction, decent weather, fishing was okay, and just kind of all worked out. Wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either, so we got, it was up 20%, so that's a good thing. In terms of the marina, I really applaud Dave and the Harbor Commission for doing additional marketing. We need to get more boat traffic into that marina. Our revenue is directly derived from that, through dockage fees and through fuel sales. Those are the two big revenue items in the marina. So anything that the Harbor Commission can do to drive traffic that way, particularly in June and September, as you pointed out, would be a good thing. So I applaud the Harbor Commission for taking that on. We're still at the marina building trying to get a good understanding of how that facility operates in terms of utilities, and that will take a little bit of time, a few seasons under our belt. On the general fund, things are coming in fairly well. A couple areas that are very encouraging are EMS transport revenue. Talked about that briefly when we committed to purchase the new ambulance, but those revenues have stayed up higher now that the Medicaid billings are coming in, and we're anticipating that they're going to come in well ahead of our budget item, which would be enough to fund that additional contribution to the motor pool and then some. We also are incurring a few legal fees for outside counsel in some of our negotiations with our adjoining council on water. Those will be reimbursed by the Water and Sewer Fund, but they're recorded in the general fund under the attorney line item. On the water and sewer utility, one thing to point out there is we did have a fairly sizable rate increase last year, and so far, it looks like those rate increases are generating the additional revenue that we hope for. It's still a little early to tell on that, but that's a positive sign. The Oaks prison volumes are also up, however, they're still down below their contractual minimum, so that's not really generating any more revenue. Does anybody have any questions on the report that I gave you? I just wanted to kind of touch the highlights on that, and as we get further into the year, the second quarterly report, there's generally more information, but particularly the third quarter, we'll have a little bit better handle on a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to concerns and comments. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Citizens and tenants shall be recognized by the mayor for comment. They're limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Is there anyone in attendance who'd like to comment? Yes, please come forward.
Mayor Kenny, hello. Mayor Lieutenant Zering and the rest of the committee. I'm Representative Ray Craves, and I'm just here to observe, obviously, what you've been doing and to give a somewhat of a late update on some of the things we've done in Lansing over the last month or two. And last week in particular was very exciting from our point of view. We passed some 45 different bills in the last week before break, and it was a little bit complicated, and I'd like to go over a few of those that may have some impact on you, if you don't mind. Some of the changes that we brought forward, there's going to be a pilot program through the Secretary of State's office to allow communities and counties to share responsibilities for voter files and for elections with other municipalities or counties. That's a pilot program that will be run to see how that cooperation of effort will work out. There was going to be waivers for gun-free zones to include corrections officers and parole officers along with juvenile probation officers. There was a 3-bill package to make ammo a felony when it's possessed by a felon. That's a new set of laws. Angle parking will be allowed on some front lines. For example, excuse me, on M22, that's a good example. I don't think it would apply to 31, but there's exemption for drug drop-off facilities to be exempt from waste management rules. There's exemption of developmental properties that was passed last term. This year we had to pass an additional law because some of the assessors were not including the land values with those developmental properties. Now the land and the buildings of developmental properties will have some exemption from the 18 months. There is a new act going through to allow for full-time firefighters to work at other departments if they choose on their off time. Currently, those are forbidden within departments, but firefighting was the only job that was prohibited, and it was felt that that's unfair to the firefighters. Excuse me, I'm battling a bad cold. There was changes made to the squatting laws within private locations. There was a 5-bill blight package that was passed, and that applies to home rule city act establishments. Of course, those are cities in excess of 7,500 or 6,500 within a county of 1.5 million. But it was designed basically for the major municipalities like Detroit, Flint, that kind of thing. But there was expanded laws for dealing with the blight problem. We did some expansion of microbrewery capacities and for brew pubs that may involve something in the city here. We also passed new intra-county transfers of liquor license availability so that liquor licenses could be moved within the county and not just within specific jurisdictions. There was a bill to include the wine over 66 in the homestead property tax exemption for their income, which was somehow eliminated during the changeover, but it has not been put back in. Tax on the difference before purchases of new boats, RVs, are now going to be in effect and it will be phased in for automobiles. Municipalities, the revenue sharing portion of that tax and the school aid portion of that tax are going to be held harmless by the savings in the Medicaid expansion. So the governor's plan is to use those savings that either going to realize to offset the cost difference to the municipalities and schools for the tax on the difference. There's some new misdig laws that further expand the definitions for what complies or comports with the federal requirements that are coming down from misdig. It also specifies what are exempt are certain farm facilities railroad facilities, municipalities, and governmental rules are included in that legislation. So you'll have to check on that to see what parts are the municipality are exempt from the state requirements and what aren't. Skimming devices are now going to be illegal. Skimming devices are new gimmicks that are being put into scanning things for credit cards. It's a new gadget that they've figured out. They can actually read cards and use it illegally. And my firefighter bill, veterans firefighter bill, was passed and signed into law, actually just last week, that will allow veterans returning home with experience to use that experience for firefighting, and to qualify for a firefighter's license. And finally, for Manager Deutsch and your attorney, 4001, House Bill 4001, looks like it's going to move within the next 2 weeks. It's a FOIA bill, and if you look it up, please pay attention to the House Substitute 4 on that. I would appreciate any feedback. And with that, I'll stop. Unless you have any questions.
I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Sure, I'll be glad.
Thank you, Representative Grant. Really appreciate you stopping in and keeping us updated. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to officials and staff. Your clerk. City Manager.
Just a couple of comments, Your Honor. In today's Manistee News Advocate, there was another paid advertisement ran by real Manistee residents and citizens. By my count, or our count in our office, this is 13 ads that have been run in the Manistee News Advocate over the past few months. Whereas I respect the right of citizens to their opinion and freedom of speech, I also believe that facts and accuracy matter. It was stated in today's Manistee News Advocate paid advertisement that City Manager Mitch Deutsch, quote, set the stage for higher taxes to repair local streets. Our office reviewed the 10/15/13 meeting minutes and watched the actual video on the PEG channel to determine what I actually said in that particular meeting. And what I was doing in that particular meeting was identifying options to generate required revenue to address local street upgrades. The preliminary options identified during staff comments were use of the unused millage, voted street millage, special assessments, use of capital improvement funds, and continuing research of grant dollars going forward. Nowhere in my comments was I setting the stage for higher taxes. This is a council policy decision, not a staff decision. Again, accuracy matters. In regards to the city manager implying that money provided to the oil and gas proceeds and earnings have no tax consequence to citizens. Respectfully, this may be someone's assumption, but it is not founded in accuracy or truth. My comments in the November 15th Manistee News article regarding the 2013 Summer Beach projects focused on no local taxes were used to complete both the First Street beach shelter or the fish cleaning station. I am not implying anything, simply stating accurate and factual information. The beach house used capital improvement funds, as we know today, or proceeds from oil and gas, not tax dollars. It also used Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund. You'll recall many of you have voted for the Natural Resource Trust Fund. That is the oil and gas fund that the state of Michigan uses those royalties to put into this grant. We received $280,000 through that, as well as we received $100,000 from the local revenue sharing board. Again, my emphasis was we were not using local tax dollars to fund that project. I'm not applying anything, it's factual information. In regards to the fish cleaning station, we again use capital improvement funds, which are the proceeds from the oil and gas funds, as well as Great Lakes Fishery Trust Fund dollars. Great Lakes Fishery Trust Fund dollars come from the settlement between the state of Michigan and Consumers Energy at the time for a fish kill. I don't remember what year it was, but it happened outside the Ludington Pump Storage Station. That established a fund of money, which we are tapping into on a pretty regular basis to, again, to improve those facilities. Again, I think it's factual information that we didn't use any tax dollars. Again, not trying to imply anything, but again, I think that it's important that we use accurate information rather than assumptions or indicating that I'm applying to do one thing I know or other. Thank you.
City Attorney?
Nothing.
Public Safety Director?
Nothing, Your Honor.
DPW Director?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Anything else, Finance Director? Councilmember Cody?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Councilmember Murphy?
Right now, nothing, Your Honor. I'll reserve my comments for the work session in December.
Councilmember Booth?
Just want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. I know the good speaks will be thinking two more things, but happy Thanksgiving.
Mayor Pro Tem Sarah?
Yes, I would like to remind everyone that the Victoria Sleigh Bell Parade and on Christmas weekend is rapidly approaching, and we are in need of information ambassadors as well as parade entrants. If you would like to be an information ambassador, you get to wear this really cool sash. The easiest of any costume that you could put together would be a flannel shirt and pants, work boots, whatever. If you are interested in being an information ambassador, just call Glenn Zaring at 690-7158, and there will be training sessions.
Councilmember Woodruff?
On Thursday, the 21st, the Planning Commission for the City of Manistee has a visioning meeting, so please attend.
Councilmember Benson?
Nothing.
And to follow up with comments made by City Manager and Councilmember Hornville, there is a work session going to be held in December to really address and start looking at our road asset management, looking at our streets. We all know, the condition of our streets and the type of funding that's going to be required to address those. So we're going to start those talks. We're going to cover what their asset management program is, how the city has adopted that, what we're doing, and how to look more forward, especially some of these roads that do fall off. So that's planned beginning with the work session in December. My anticipation that, given the topic, it's going to be more than, I think, a one-time work session that we'll be looking at.
Adopting new standards in your strategic planning process. We wanted to hold that work session in advance of your strategic planning in case there be some changes potentially incorporated into that document.
There's going to be no easy solutions or quick fixes, but we need to start working on those. And as far as Sleigh Bell Weekend, for those that didn't see the article, there was a really nice article in Midwest Living, I believe, that really had a nice article on the City of Manistee and Sleigh Bell Weekend. So if you didn't get to see that, please go out, and if you can't get a copy, I know there are some down in the bookstores downtown.
They have reordered, I think, 3 times now, and I don't believe there are any more. I think I took the last copies from CBD.
It was a wonderful article, and hopefully City Manistee and our surrounding areas will see benefit from that article. And to piggyback on Councilmember Goodspeed's comments, I hope everyone has a really safe and enjoyable Thanksgiving. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Keeping all the people say, there's down from Tennessee, she won and she is tall. She came down from Birmingham and cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roll.